It's likely that many of us are experiencing worry about the coronavirus situation at the moment. We might be worried about our health or the health of our loved ones. We might be worried about the impact on our day-to-day life or concerns about the future and what happens after the virus. We might also have some more practical concerns about things like money or employment. These are all very normal worries to be having under the circumstances. Unfortunately, we know from the statistics that people have become sick with the coronavirus, and as a result of this, some people have died. We also know that there are a lot of questions that we don't have answers for yet about duration and the future. This makes these worries very, very understandable. And what we also know about anxiety is that people experience physical symptoms that can be quite distressing to them. So it's quite normal when people are anxious to experience problems with their sleep or their energy levels. We might also have things like physical tension or problems with our concentration happening. And some of us will feel quite restless when we're anxious. One of the reasons we experience these symptoms is that anxiety is our body's way of protecting us against damage and danger and stress. Our system goes into gear to start to prepare ourselves to fight or to run away from stress and from danger. With the coronavirus situation, it's a more long-standing thing. It's likely to go on for a longer period of time, and we would be better off thinking of different ways, such as following precautions and guidelines from the government and from healthcare services to protect ourselves in these times and to keep ourselves as well as possible. The good news is, with all anxiety symptoms, there are some really useful techniques that we can learn to help manage them, to help us feel a bit more in control in the situation.
Some various different tips that you might want to consider here. The first is that when you do notice that you are worrying about things, it might be helpful just to shift the focus of your attention away from how you're feeling to think about the facts that have been presented to us. 3 facts that you might find helpful are, first of all, that the current restrictions that we do have on our life are only temporary. They're not going to last forever. Secondly, the vast majority of people who have the virus only experience a mild illness. And thirdly, that most of us will have a full recovery and won't need to have to go into hospital. Second thing you might want to consider is shifting your focus onto perhaps a positive image. It might be a really lovely time that you have with your family and friends, because a lot of research does show that if we're able to do so, it can interrupt the worry in that moment. Another thing to consider might be just reducing the amount of time that you're spending on researching and reading around the topic of the coronavirus at the moment. Although we do appreciate that watching and listening to things like the news can be really helpful, actually what you might find is that if you are doing it too much, that's something that can exacerbate those symptoms of anxiety and worry. What I might think about doing is picking 1 or 2 really reliable resources like the NHS website or the government website, but more importantly, thinking about exactly when I'm going to do that in the day. Sticking it to around 1 or 2 times in the day might be quite helpful. Also, what I tend to find is through not looking at those things too late in the evening, actually it allows me to sleep a lot better. Now, the big topic of social media, another thing to think about is whether I can mute or adjust some of those notifications that do pop up quite regularly, thinking about those buzzwords like COVID-19 and coronavirus, which will hopefully reduce the amount of worry and anxiety that we have.
Another useful tip can be to try and notice and recognise if you're checking your body too frequently for signs of the illness. Although this is really understandable, what we know is that actually checking for signs of illness can make us more worried and more anxious. If you can recognise when you're doing this, it can be really helpful to shift your focus away from that and onto a different task, something else that you can do that you can engage with.
With the current pandemic, it's really hard not to worry about just how much this all means to us. But try to take each day as it comes and continue to support each other during this difficult time. There may be some positives that you can take away from this, like reconnecting with other people. It might be boosting those community links that we have, and also an opportunity really to develop new skills. if we can try our best to maximise pleasurable activities, sticking to that routine, continuing to support each other as well, then we can all manage together over the coming months.